Stop. Just stop it. This is so incredibly out of touch and irritating. How grandiose of Harry and Meghan. Just when you think they can't stoop any lower, there they go, finding new lows to reach, digging their hole ever deeper. Hi everybody, I'm Beebs Kelley. Welcome back to another video. Please do consider subscribing if you have not yet already. Click the like button if you want to and leave a comment for the algorithm. If you don't know what to comment, just leave a yellow heart, only if you want to. So Harry and Meghan released an official or formal statement about the California wildfires. At this point, it's clear they are doing the most in the most unwelcome of ways during this time. It's not wise for so many reasons, but let's begin with the first error that they made, which was putting out their thoughts and opinions and packaging it in what they called a formal statement. It's hard to take seriously, isn't it? It's so foolish. The public, but especially the people in California, dealing with this disaster on the front lines of it, actually being directly affected by it, do not need advice, especially from the likes of Harry and Meghan. This was an incredibly grandiose mistake that they made. Formal statement? What? What was that? I'm sorry. Did Harry and Meghan forget that they are just known people, famous sorts of people now? They are not part of anything official, which means they can tweet and post whatever they want, but that doesn't make it a statement, let alone a formal statement. How absurd and really quite annoying. You don't see any other famous people or well-known people or celebrities, even the likes of Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, who aren't celebrities, but they're kind of like public figures, I guess, at this point. You don't see any of those types of people. You don't see any other philanthropists or celebrities putting out their thoughts and opinions and trying to prop it up to make it seem more important than it is by calling it an official statement or a formal statement. People don't do that. Because it's ridiculous. It's silly. It's not going to be received well. Why are you trying to make yourself seem more important than you are? It maketh no sense. The only people who get to put out any degree of a formal or official statement are those holding a political office. Your mayors, governors, council people, congressmen, senators, the president, those types of people can put out official statements or formal statements because they actually have the capacity to do so. And that's part of their job. They are releasing those statements as a professional. They're not releasing those statements from a personal place. They're not saying this is our formal statement and that's me, my thoughts and opinions as a person, as an individual, my feelings. No, they release an official or a formal statement from their office, from their official capacity in that job or role or position that they hold. For example, the governor, as the governor of California, will release official and formal statements related to the governing of California, not as him, as a person, as an individual, private citizen. Harry and Meghan are private citizens, well, private people, allegedly. And therefore, there is no formal or officialness to anything that they are saying. So immediately that was a gross error of judgment to try to package their opinions and thoughts as official and formal statements. Furthermore, putting out the statement that they did that included all these advice and telling people what to do additionally is not going to be received well. It's just further going to make them seem pesky in a situation like this. I can't quite understand what they were thinking. If they were still working royals, then any degree of formal statement once again would be coming through their office as part of their job. Since they no longer have that job, they don't get to keep putting out formal statements. It's so weird. To look at this even deeper, though, it does demonstrate Harry and Meghan's inflated egos and lack of awareness, just complete lack of awareness, but also their inability to settle into the choices that they've made and the space that they have placed themselves within. When leaving the royal family, so too they left behind the ability to make any degree of a formal or official statement on anything. You don't see any other people calling their opinions or thoughts on the situations formal statements because that's ridiculous. For some reason, Harry and Meghan can't quite grasp that. And because they so dearly miss and wish they could have continued to have that status as working royals, they just wanted to do it their way. Since they miss that sort of elevated position that they once enjoyed, they seem to think that they can continue to do that and just pretend that they still have some sort of official or formal capacity when they don't. It is so juvenile to watch these grown people continue to pretend like they have any degree of official capacity when they don't is bizarre and indicative of a deeper problem in terms of how they see themselves in the world, their lack of awareness of the dynamic and situation and where they are now. Just because Harry has the title of prince, they have Duke and Duchess titles from the UK, doesn't mean that forevermore their thoughts and opinions are going to be newsworthy or automatically formal in any way, shape, or form. Maybe if they were back in the UK, it would make a little bit more sense, but not working royals, you don't see them doing this. All the other people who are part of the royal family and related to the monarch are not making their thoughts and opinions official statements because that's dumb, which I guess just shows that Harry and Meghan are approaching this situation and dynamic in a really dumb way. From a PR perspective, when we look at the layer on the surface here, it's damaging. It's pretentious of them. Harry and Meghan have been in a bit of a PR crisis for some time now, very disliked by the public to the point of just simply not caring about Harry and Meghan anymore, which means they will lose all traction in the media if they're not careful. And they are on the brink of this at the moment. And their popularity has been on a consistent descent ever since before they left the royal family. So to take this sort of pompous approach and try to make yourself seem or look more important than you are is just the wrong move in terms of their PR. They really do need to pick a lane. Either they're going to continue to try to just focus on the philanthropy and try to create the faux royal image in which they need to really pivot away from the entertainment industry and marketing and like selling things, this whole American Riviera, Orchard Montecito, and writing books and all of that needs to stop. In which case, they could, I guess, have a little bit more leniency afforded to them trying to make official statements, because if they were dedicating their full time, 100% of their time and lives to philanthropy and charity and humanitarian causes, then perhaps people would give it a bit of a pass, that they still try to pretend like they have some sort of official capacity. But doing this where they're doing so much for personal gain, it just makes them look self-important, egotistical, pretentious, like they're trying to pretend like they're more important than they are. And that's yet another reason why this isn't working well and why the public found it to be rather offensive, actually. And this sort of wannabe feeling that we're getting from Harry and Meghan, that they don't fully understand the fact that now they are just plain famous people and shouldn't be doing these things anymore, is more evidence that clearly Harry and Meghan miss the elevated status that their old jobs afforded them, where their thoughts on these sort of things were packaged into official statements and more newsworthy, or at least were reported on by the news. Now, Harry and Meghan are essentially nobodies in this arena, so it's just grating on everybody's nerves at this point. Ultimately, this alone made them all the more annoying and unlikable to people. And it took away from whatever message it was that they wanted to share or were trying to share. Had they just been normal and made a normal post and announced a donation like a lot of the other celebrities were doing, it would not have been this bad at all. In fact, I think that it would have done them a lot of good for their reputation. But this made it look like there was a lot more talk and a lot less doing behind it. And again, they're preaching to people. They're telling people what they should be doing in a time of crisis when they don't have any position or authority or reason to do so. Many celebrities have donated millions of dollars, and they have announced it, a lot of them, in part to raise awareness of where is a good place to donate, but also, there is that element right now in culture with the whole classist vibes where, people are frustrated with celebrities and wealthy people suggesting people who are struggling to pay the bills donate or do more to help out with anything, whether it's the environment or a disaster. It doesn't really matter. Like we saw with the whole Hawaii thing and Oprah, she got roasted. Even though she donated millions of dollars, she got roasted for suggesting other people donate, because as a billionaire, to everyone else watching, to the general public observers, it didn't look like she was doing quite enough to be sitting there telling people what they should be doing in a time of crisis. Same sort of vibe is happening with celebrities and Harry and Meghan in this moment. And so I think sometimes, at least now, it comes across more appropriate to just simply put out a simple, clean-cut social post and note where you're donating. And a lot of the celebrities are including how much they're donating. And this is kind of softening that thread in culture and that sort of discussion in culture about the wealthy people versus everybody else who's struggling in this time. And so I think if Harry and Meghan had simply said, this is where we're donating, how much we're donating, and our hearts are broken for everybody involved, and these are some other resources out there that we think are reputable and helpful during this time. And leave it at that. You're not telling anybody what to do. You're trying to help spread awareness of what are some good places to donate, though Harry and Meghan's choices probably wouldn't be that reputable. And then you're simply letting people know that you care and how much you donated and where you donated it to. That would have saved them all of this criticism, and it would have softened their images some, because it would have been the right thing to do, and it would have been in line with the other celebrities who are doing things right now. As I said, these other celebrities are not offering unsolicited advice paired up with their announcement of what they're donating or where they're donating to. Once again, the Sussexes seem to think that they're in a position of any sort. No one is looking to them at this time. They're the last people anybody's looking to. Now, Harry and Meghan did allegedly, according to some sources, donate some degree of funds as well as goods. However, we have no details, unlike some other celebrities, we have no details of how much they donated, where they donated it to, and what sorts of goods they donated or how much they donated. For all we know, this could have been as little as a tub of things they were planning on donating in the coming weeks anyway, of clothes and toys their children have outgrown, and a small or modest donation to one of their friends' things, or even a donation to Archwell they could have said was for the fires or related to the fires. They could have even said that and just donated to their own foundation, and it could have been a small amount. We don't know, and that's the problem with leaving out those types of details. And instead of delivering those types of details, Harry and Meghan just told people what they should be doing and left it all vague. On the other hand, it could have been really substantial donation, and it could have been a lot of, a car full of bottled waters and cars full of hygiene kits. Who knows? We don't know what Harry and Meghan have done. Unfortunately, their reputations precede them, and people are assuming it was very little or next to nothing, which would be reasonable of the public to assume given what Harry and Meghan have done in the past. And I want to be clear, no one should be discouraged from donating or helping out. Any little bit helps. If you can only donate a small amount to these relief funds or a small amount of hygiene supplies or water, that's great. That every little bit helps in these types of disasters. So I'm not saying that just because we don't know exactly what Harry and Meghan did, it's not good enough or not okay. Every little bit helps. The problem is in their delivery, though. Additionally, they didn't need to inform the press about it. They especially didn't need to tell the press that they're letting friends stay with them, nor telling people what they should be doing. It's never going to come across well. And the fact that Harry and Meghan are notorious for doing these sorts of self-serving things and turning every little thing into a moment where they can be like, look what we did, real narcissistic vibes, means in this moment they had the opportunity to do it differently and do it right, and they failed once again. But backlash for their stupid statement wasn't enough. Next, they reached out to Mayor Gordo asking to come survey the damage with a camera crew in tow, notified TMZ so they could send a photographer along to report on it, and said that they wanted to volunteer for a short bit of time, which, according to reports of people who were there, was literally about 20 minutes or less. What stands out to me most, while this is a multifaceted problem that they have created for themselves and what they did, what stands out to me the most about this is that they literally took the mayor, other workers and policemen away from their duties to escort them, to look at the devastation, to escort them in and out of the shelter and emergency service areas, completely unnecessary. These organizations are already short-staffed, and these people have likely been working extra hours and extra stressed. Some of their homes have been affected, and they're still showing up to work. And Harry and Meghan had no place being there in the first place, but furthermore had no place taking those people away from their jobs and duties, taking the mayor away from giving attention to the people of Altadena who have been affected by this, taking the mayor away from his people, the people of his city, giving his attention to them instead of the people of Altadena who have been through a disaster and need his help and attention and time, is gross. Completely unacceptable. Now, granted, the mayor should have just said, no, you can't come tour things. No, we can't really take on escorting you around with your self-important team of security and all of this nonsense. He should have said no. But at the same time, here's this man who's probably extremely overwhelmed at this moment and gets a phone call from an important sounding couple saying they want to come and tour and see what they can do to help. Little did he know, this is what I'm saying, most people don't actually know much about Harry and Meghan at all. Little did he know they weren't actually going to be helpful in any way, shape, or form, probably not really understanding the full picture. So I don't think that he necessarily deserves a ton of grief, but it definitely doesn't look good for him to be taking his attention away from a disaster in his city and giving it to the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. As for Harry and Meghan, they shouldn't have asked at all. You know who goes to see the damage, the impact of a disaster here in America? Only and exclusively the politicians, the president, the governors, the senators, the congressmen, and people who are in charge of humanitarian aid, like FEMA, health department people. Those are the people who come and survey damage from these things, as well as sometimes scientists and researchers who are trying to see what's happened and try to help formulate plans for recovery and prioritize things. Anybody involved in those sorts of things are the only people who come and survey a disaster. You have to have a purpose. Either you're actually in a position, like your job is to help and contribute to solving these problems and helping out in these sorts of situations, or you're a politician. That's it. Those are the only people who come to survey damage, because they are the ones who can actually do something about it and who are tasked with helping out and fixing it afterwards. And they're not always great at it, granted, but that's their job. That's their role. Harry and Meghan have zero place in this. It's extremely insensitive. This is not their lane at all. Furthermore, how insulting to the residents who aren't even allowed to go down their street and see if their house is even there or not. The residents aren't allowed. So why should Harry and Meghan be allowed? It's incredibly frustrating. It's sad. It's gross. And Harry and Meghan made a gross error here. Almost, if not just as bad as the Uvalde visit, which really upset a lot of people, including myself. That was super gross of her. They're either into viewing these tragedies for some sick reason, or they're under the erroneous impression that this would be acceptable in any way, which I find hard to believe, that somebody would think it was acceptable to go and look at other people's burned down homes and neighborhoods and entire communities when those people haven't even been allowed in to see for themselves first. How disrespectful to those people. It's icky. Really, really icky. And it's created a problem once again, as we've seen, not only for Harry and Meghan and their reputation being further damaged and blah, 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 old news, right? The same thing over again. But also, as we've seen, every time they do stuff like this, they drag someone down with them, in this case, the mayor. It's just not okay. Did the mayor not have better things to do? Now he's getting a lot of scrutiny and criticism for this choice. Did the volunteers and first responders not have better things to do than escort the selfish Sussexes around? They probably got a lot of scowls from the people around. What in the actual heck is going on here? Who thought any of this was a good idea and who approved it. That's what people want to know. Residents are rightly outraged that Harry and Meghan got to walk around those burned homes while homeowners are still barred from doing so. In fact, not just those homeowners, but the entirety of LA is pissed at Harry and Meghan for this, and at the Mayor Gordo, for allowing this to happen. The bottom line is, regardless of how much the Sussexes want to help and may or may not be of use at this time, the Sussexes hold no office or capacity to do anything beyond that which any other celebrity in Los Angeles can. Therefore, they have nothing to offer any of these mayors or communities in exchange for this gross lapse in judgment besides their faces and bad press. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to hear about it, and it was a horrible mistake. The visit has been heavily criticized by everyone as well. Initially, there were some sort of neutral reports of like, oh, Harry and Meghan went to survey the damage. And then the entire public was like, I'm sorry, what? What? Why? Not okay. Even mainstream media is now going hard against the Sussexes for this. If it doesn't make sense, then it simply invites the assessment that it was all for the Sussexes' vanity, and that is just what has happened at this point. People think this was just a vanity thing, a photo op, and they're getting roasted far and wide because there was no reason. So it makes no sense. So people assume, rightly so, that this was just a publicity stunt, and a really gross one at that. The only reason to do any of this, to tell the press unnecessarily that they're letting friends stay with them, all of these things, was just a self-serving attempt at a scrap of positive publicity. Issuing a statement as if you're still in your old job is not just pathetic, it's unwelcome. And it further makes them look not only foolish but out of touch to think it's their place or that it would be received well. For those of us dealing with this nonsense, it's quite frankly rude. Go volunteer, help serve food, bring bottled water and other goods to donate. Donate money and time and other needed things. Sure, please do. But don't publicize it the way Harry and Meghan did. And certainly don't take the time of the people working to help with this disaster. Don't take the mayor's time or any of the police in the area to escort you about. How insane. You can contrast this not only with other celebrities who have donated and tweeted about it, but with Sean Penn, for example, with CORE. He is in charge of this organization and funds it a great deal himself to respond to disasters in this way. And he is there helping out right now every single day. He's been providing hygiene kits and cash subsidies since day one of this disaster to people who have been displaced out of their homes so that they can afford to have a roof over their heads until they can get back to their house and see what's going on or start to rebuild. He's helping people fill out their FEMA applications so that they can actually get started on trying to get some relief and some help for this disaster. He and his team and his entire organization, it's called CORE, are doing a really good job. And he has not publicized it until the news just happened to see him and be like, oh, it's Sean Penn out here doing real stuff. And they came and interviewed him. And so now there's a few interviews up. And Sean Penn is not out there trying to get patted on the back for it. And he's not out there trying to tell people what they should be doing either. Fabulous. 100% the way it should be done. Harry and Meghan, complete opposite end of the spectrum. The problem with all of this would seem to be twofold. They're still trying to pretend like they're working royals when they're not. This is not how people operate, so Harry and Meghan should not be doing this anymore. It's unacceptable. And secondly, while they may have good intentions to try to help out, they seem to always get in their way. The insatiable desire to publicize things and feel important is so strong with the Sussexes that they sabotage any positive efforts made by making these mistakes. Publicizing it the way they did, bringing their own photographers, wasting the time of the mayor and other workers in the area to accommodate them and escort them, reveals the selfish motivations and the vanity of it all. Finally, going and looking at disasters and tragedies, like I have always said, is not only not the done thing and not okay, but it's the same thing they've been doing. Look at this problem. Just point and look at it. That's all Harry and Meghan do. Look at this problem with online safety. Look at this problem with the environment. Look at this problem from this disastrous fire. In fact, this time, it even represents this bigger problem of the desire to look at these sorts of disasters and problems instead of encouraging motivation to help. After the criticism that they received, they revealed through sources, they've sat down and emailed people. That's what they do. that they find it offensive to think it was just a photo op. Well, then be smarter, Harry and Meghan, quite frankly. Do not let it look like a photo op if you don't want to be called out and criticized for just making this into a photo op. Don't bring your photographer. What even is happening? Harry and Meghan had the audacity to bring their own videographers, photographers along with, and called TMZ to let them know they were going to be there. And then turn around and say they're offended that people are calling this a photo op. Don't go and view burned homes where the homeowners haven't even had the chance to see for themselves. And then complain that you're being criticized. Don't do that type of stuff. Don't spend just a few minutes on site while telling everybody else what to do. If you don't want to be criticized and you don't want to give the impression that it was all just a photo op, then don't make it look like one. Come without a camera crew. Come with just 1 or 2 security, not a whole team, and a huge convoy of cars. Come under the radar. Don't demand the mayor's attention and a police escort to bring you in and out of the area. Be covert for once. Do some volunteering for a day, or better yet, don't come at all. Just send the money and donations exclusively, like all the other practical celebrities have done. They've stayed out of the way of the first responders and the recovery efforts and the aid. They've stayed out of the way and just sent money to organizations that they trust, at least hopefully. Harry and Meghan could have done that and gotten positive publicity, positive press, and not been criticized for turning it into a photo op. But instead, they let their ego and their narcissism get the best of them and thought, let's go get some pictures and bring our videographer along with. How absurd. As the news lady who was reporting on this, who was grossly uninformed, by the way, said, she was like, they're handing out hugs, which are just so... And then she fizzled out at that moment, realizing that hugs are not needed. Hugs are not important right now. Hugs are not what anybody wants, and hugs are not helping. She realized what she was saying was a load of tosh and pivoted. Because hugs don't help, you see? That's not what people need right now, is Harry and Meghan walking around there getting pictures of them hugging people. Be sure you're subscribed so you do not miss upcoming videos. We have more to say on this topic in the next video coming out. At least it should be next. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a happy day ahead, and I will see you next time. Bye.